happens when you go home? What's the topic like? Because we're so hypersensitive and flag driven and sports and, what's it like when you go back to try to explain to people like what it's like over here?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And I think part of that is because, systems of oppression work differently in different cultural contexts. So here, very much focused historically on race and gender, just looking at the history of this country. In Germany, it's very much more on the lines of religion and ethnicity and socioeconomic class. So my friends, when I tell them about the work here, they get like what I do, but they don't really get the nuances of, like race and gender being the primary lenses that we use in this country to talk about oppression and discrimination and, driving change. But generally, I think they get it. It's interesting because in Germany, Germans are not very patriotic due to the horrific past with the Holocaust, of course. So we are not very, proud to be Germans. Whereas in the United States, it's very different. There is so much pride in the flag and just the national anthem. Like in Germany, you won't hear the national anthem being played before sporting games. Like we just don't do that. So it's a very different experience here, and it's been such a good learning experience. And I think that, we have so many people getting into DEI work now, and I think that's a really unique perspective that I can provide, like that, growing up in a different cultural context and kind of coming in as an outsider and bringing in that lens. So I think it's been a great learning experience. As doing DEI work, we never stop learning. So right. I always think back of my, my German roots and thinking about growing up and my experience and how that can inform my work in this country.
Who are you reading? What do you read now? And are there books or ideas for the common everyday folk that they could read to sort of get them hip or get them woke in a good way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the good things coming off of this very tragic year is that we have more of an appreciation for authors who do, write about topics like inequality and equity, systemic issues. One of my favorite authors is Sarah Ahmed. On Being Included is one of her books. That's one of my go-to books. I've been trying to read a lot of pieces from authors of color, queer authors, female authors, any authors that don't look like me or don't share the same identity as me, because that is so important in the work that I do. Right now, if people want to get started, we have seen all the ones that are on the bestseller list, like the Ibram X. Kendi, Stamp from the Beginning, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Like those are all books that I've read before, this year, but that have really gotten into mainstream. So I think that's a good starting point. Scholarly wise, part of the hats I wear is that of a researcher and a scholar. So I read a lot of work of folks doing diversity work in the academic space, stuff like that. So I think for the mainstream, there's so much out there right now, and that doesn't have to be books, right? That can be like a Netflix series or Hulu. There's so much great content being produced on the experiences of Black people, for example, people of color, queer people, of looking at systemic issues that we continue to face as a society here. So there's a ton of stuff out there to kind of get started and get woke in that space. And I was going to say, for those of you who might be watching and they're trying to get more into like the in-depth nitty-gritty of this work, which we need more of those folks doing that.
Yeah.
Some of the giants in the field, like the Cornells West, the Kimberly Crenshaw, like those are really good places to start to actually read their work. And some of the, the civil rights leaders that we have in this country, like looking at John Lewis, who just passed away, looking at Martin Luther King, some of those like writings actually really helped me find my voice and get a better understanding of the past and how we can use, that experience to drive change.